welcome back to the Crick House podcast. We hope that you've enjoyed the last couple of episodes that have been out there for you recently, with an introduction to our family, my mum's testimony, our first episode of the 3-Minute Testimony series, where we will release a 3-minute testimony, a short testimony from our family, hopefully once a week for you to enjoy and to encourage you as you go about your day-to-day life. But today, and for the next lot of foreseeable episodes,
interspersed with
personal family testimonies, absolutely, is an exciting little series that we are doing where we are walking you through our family blog. Now, for some context, how long has that blog been running for, Mum?
From 2019 we started it, probably a bit too late, because that's how many years into the ministry? Gosh,
a lot.
Yeah, a lot.
That was at least 5 or 6 years.
6 years into it, yeah.
Yeah.
We suddenly decided that it would be a good idea to turn off the iPad when we're on the podcast, Eli. So we are just sitting around the table. So as last week, when you hear the natural noises of the tea slurping and the tea clinking, and yeah, we're now getting all the sound effects from the theatre crew, and the dog's under the table having a good scratch, and Ariel with her crunkling of her love hearts, which are sweets for those of you that don't know in the UK, and then the interspersing with the iPad and their little yawn. Wow. Gosh, we are really doing a sound effects episode today. There seems to be something about this podcast. As soon as we start doing it, as last week on the rug, Pip, our little boy, puppy, is starting to do his rolling routine. And I don't know what this is, but clearly this is a cue that he's learned. When they sit around the table, I'm going to make as much noise as possible. So, yeah. So there you go. So we decided we'd start blogging in 2019, which is probably a little bit too late. There were so many stories to tell in the first few years of Manor, and just wonder, maybe Oscar, Ari, you could just catch people up to 2019 we've talked about the moment we started in the little studio and then moving on. What were the first few years of Manor like, and where did we perform, and what were the groups called, and what day of the week did we do it, and what colours were the T-shirts?
Okay, this is really testing my memory now. So this was for me between the ages of 10 and 16. Okay, so when we had the class moved from the studio, we went to a church hall, and it got so big we actually took over the entire hall. And it was on a Wednesday night?
Yes, it was.
It was a Wednesday night, wasn't it? Yeah.
Wednesdays.
It was Wednesdays. Oh. I think Wednesdays might be why I insinuate yellow as a happy colour, because Wednesdays was a happy day and I always saw yellow as Wednesday.
And we record on Wednesdays.
We do record on Wednesdays. Anyway, we took over the entire hall. We had so many kids. We had micro minis, we had minis, juniors, seniors and upper seniors, and they were light blue, red, navy and purple.
Their T-shirts, not the children.
Yeah, the T-shirts. And burgundy? Do we have burgundy?
We did. That was for the team.
Had burgundy.
Team of burgundies. The minis and the micros were light blue, the juniors were red, the seniors were navy, and then the upper seniors were purple. And we used to perform a summer show and a winter show every year, sometimes 3 shows a year, at a theatre belonging to a private school in the area.
That's
right.
True.
Yeah. That's true. Yes, we
did. It was
a
proper state-of-the-art BBC standard theatre.
I think in 2019, how many musicals had we managed to do? We'd done, probably about 12 or 13 musicals?
Quite a few by then, haven't we?
No, because if we're in 2023 now, and the Passion Play is going to be like our 22nd, 23rd musical, then by 2019 we will have done about 13 or 14 musicals. So, blog posts. You had the mammoth task of putting them into a book, didn't you?
We decided it would be a good idea just to start putting them into books, and there is going to be a book all by itself, all about our year and a bit in lockdown in our big yellow bus, because that in itself is just maybe a year's worth of podcasts. I don't know.
I think it could be a century.
We could give a load of stories, but
like the flying toilet.
Absolutely, flying toilet is yet to come. But there's so many things that God has taught us over the last 10 years of being in ministry that just came in snippets, and every time one of us kind of had a God moment, not that you ever leave being with God, but those moments where that light bulb revelation and God opens up something and you just think, wow, we just blogged it, we wrote it down. And even the moments where we were going through tough times, and now our dog is having a hissy fit in the area because Oscar tried to include him in the podcast, and clearly Eddie is not one to be around a microphone. But yeah, we'll just leave Eddie to get on with what Eddie needs to do. So actually, the first blog post we're looking at here is when we had been settled in Surrey for quite a while, and we'd had the unfortunateness, if you like, of having to move so many times. And it was, either a landlord wanted to sell or the rent went up, and it just felt like we were forever moving. And it was a difficult time because it's like when you are a family, you obviously want that security and that opportunity to know that, you have a stable place to be for a little while. And we'd had this lovely house, which was Resmore, which was out in the countryside. And it was a nice house. It was opposite from some friends that we'd made as they moved across the road from us, Rachel and Toby. And we found out that they were lovers of Jesus too. And it was just so special to have a friend across the road for all of us, wasn't it?
It absolutely was.
They were great.
We were in a beautiful rural area.
And that was Noah's first job, wasn't it?
Yep. Noah, your
It
first
was my
ever
first job,
was
yes.
gardening for Rachel and Toby and looking after her rose.
That's right, looking after the famous rose gardens and mowing the lawn until the robot.
ATVs, wasn't it like ATVs?
No, I rode a ride-on lawnmower,
Which is just an ATV.
Which is his first
With a
and
blade.
only car.
which was my first and only car. I'm just about to have my driving license again.
We did threaten to buy him a milk float.
They did threaten. I managed to talk them down.
We should have changed your name to Ernie as well if we did that.
Yeah,
Yes, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. But no, my job got stolen by a robot,
it did.
didn't it?
Gunter.
Called Gunter.
Called Gunter.
One of these lovely robotic
Lawnmowers,
lawnmowers.
yes.
That-
Worked one week and didn't the next.
And I remember Rachel and Toby were amazing because they used to let us have manor rehearsals on their grounds. They had a beautiful room which just was lending itself to being a rehearsal studio.
Absolutely.
And sometimes in the summer when it was lovely and bright, we used to take the crew, the theatre company, out onto the lawns in their garden, and we used to perform out there. But I remember several of the young ladies being absolutely terrified by this Gunter, the robotic lawnmower.
We have to give a shout out to Rachel and Toby, because not only did they let us use that room, they also allowed us to use their outside, what would you call it now, that store cupboard? The shed.
Well, it
Store.
was a bit bigger than a
was a
shed.
workshop, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
their workshop.
Yeah, it was like a
for
major
storing a lot.
workshop.
Yeah, it was a massive place, and we had, I think we took up probably 30% of it with nothing but props and boxes and material and all sorts of different things from all the
There's
different
probably
shows.
still some bits there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there probably is some
Probably,
history
I think,
there.
Permission to
Bin it.
burn it.
Burn it. Yeah,
Burn it.
whatever. So we were at this lovely house in Farley Green and quite settled and quite happy. And I have a picture here in my book of our lovely Flynn boy, which is our biggest dog, and he's wrapped up in a blanket looking a bit like a burrito or a squashed sandwich or something. You can just see this black head, if you can imagine it, and this cream coloured blanket all around him. And the title is Moving for 8 Months. And I think I just justify that because I put here our Flynn boy had the right idea that he hid under his blanket, not coming out until this was all over. It did feel like the longest months ever because we settled and we planned the next year of ministry in 2019. We were sitting doing some finances and some paperwork, and suddenly the door went and a letter plopped through our door, and it was giving us notice.
2 months' notice.
Oh, in a moment, all our plans came crashing to the ground and things just seemed completely uncertain.
Yes,
We
they
really loved where we were. We had loads of friends.
Yeah.
In Guildford in Surrey, we still have amazing friends down there and neighbours and dear friends. The ministry was going really well and we were doing well in a local church, Godalming Baptist Church. Shout out for you. Woo! We were just planning Christmas and the new house, and we were just painting it and being on top of everything. We just felt like we got into a really nice routine. And then this came through our door, which obviously threw a spanner in the works. And
Well, it was a proverbial rug that was just ripped out from under our feet, wasn't it?
yeah. And the landlady had just said that we could stay, even if for a year, and then she changed her mind. So it was a bit of a time when I guess it was hard to understand what God was doing or what God was saying in this. It felt like we were doing the right thing. It felt like, that we were in the will of God. And I think this blog post and this blog podcast is really all about how even in the midst of storms, we have to trust that his ways are perfect and that his plans are perfect. And that scripture, what is it? The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord.
That's right.
Proverbs, isn't it?
And that we have to believe that our steps are ordered by the Lord.
I think Ariel's looking up the scripture and verse for us there.
Straight, I think is what it says.
I think this blog post particularly sums up a huge season of our lives, doesn't it? He summed up. Well, in fact, it kind of sums up right up until this point, isn't it? You know, the process of taking steps of faith without knowing what comes next.
I think also it was absolutely that, but it was also a matter of God was, I believe, taking what the enemy meant for harm and teaching us trust. You found the scripture?
It's in the NLT, so the New Living Translation. Psalms 37 verses 23 says, "The Lord directs the steps of the godly. He delights in every detail of their lives."
Yeah, and absolutely, it was Psalms, not Proverbs, but close book. It was just a case of us trusting God that he was ordering our steps, but also taking us through a process of not relying on things. Stuff we could touch, stuff we could feel, and putting our security in him. And I think it was a massive process because we had planned our lives in and around Surrey. But at the time, Noah, you just started to attend somewhere a little bit more up north.
Yes, that's true. 2019 was the start of that, wasn't it? Yes. I had just become a Charis Bible College student. That's a process in and of itself, isn't it? Because we
Go
were
right back to Grace and Faith.
Grace
and Faith.
Grace and Faith.
Come on.
We were
Grace
blessed.
and Faith.
We were blessed by a friend. We won't say their name here, but you know who you are. We were blessed by them with.
You started this crazy journey.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. You blessed us with the money to hire a motorhome and pay campsite fees to get to our first ever Grace and Faith.
And that Holy Spirit nudge.
Yeah, it set us on a course. And I remember we went to this conference. Grace and Faith, for those of you who don't know, is a big Christian conference. It attracts thousands of Christians every year, run by Andrew Wommack Ministries from Colorado. And we went there for the first time and we listened to some amazing teaching. And then they had a session on Charis Bible College, which is the Bible college that they run, and what it would be like to be a student. And when we were sitting there in that conference, I felt that God wanted me to take on being a Charis student as the final phase of my education. And only being 17 at the time, thinking about Bible college was kind of a daunting thought. But we went to the information meeting and we went, right, okay, so what are the fees? And they showed us the fees. And in my head, I went, there's no way I'm going to ever be able to afford that. So there's the dogs again. So I took the fees away and just said to God, right, God, if you want me to go to Charis Bible College, you're going to have to make it happen. And that's where I left it for the rest of the conference. But to explain the reason why we call Grace and Faith Grace and Faith.
Yeah, I think Oscar should explain this one.
You think Oscar should explain my pain?
It would be much better coming from your brother that laughed his head off.
That's true.
Than you that was more bruising or nursing your bruises, shall we say.
Zero compassion.
Come on, Oscar, what happened?
I seem just going to have to try and remember how this all worked. So I believe, you have to correct me if I'm wrong, but it all occurred when we went down to sit for one of the meetings. And these chairs were incredibly annoying. They're the chairs that when you sit up, they flip behind you. When you sit down, if they're not flipped down, then you'll just graze your back, as Noah learnt. So I went to sit down on this chair.
Which wasn't there.
Which wasn't there, because it had flipped back up again. And basically destroyed his back in the process.
Sat on the floor.
But this is like in the main meeting, in the main thoroughfare of like...
Yeah, the thousands and thousands of people.
It was in the main meeting. There were 300 people behind me and the usher next to me.
The amusement of the usher.
Yeah, the usher thought it was brilliant. Only to find out that person was a fellow student of mine when I finally went to Charis. Yeah. Yes. So that was funny, wasn't it?
You never cried out.
He didn't cry
No, I
out.
didn't cry
He was
out.
incredibly brave.
I was brave.
But he did fall on the floor, on
Yes.
the concrete auditorium floor, having
a
grazed and failed.
about a 10-inch graze on his back, which was brilliant.
Well, your shirt as well, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Noah had this
Great.
never-ending memory that was the place, and moments before God had called him to be part of Charis. So,
Absolutely.
here we were sitting in Surrey, having planned our next few next few years in Surrey of our life. And yet every other Saturday we were getting up at ridiculous o'clock
5 a.m.
To travel to Birmingham,
Yes.
which was a place I'd visited to hear a Benny Hinn conference once, but And Gary and I had actually spent our honeymoon at the NEC at a Christian conference there, or part of our honeymoon, I should say. We didn't actually stay at the NEC.
We slept in the car.
We did
for a
not.
whole
We
week.
did not.
No,
No,
to Stratford?
we didn't. We went to Stratford and we visited the NEC.
That's right.
Stratford's much prettier than Birmingham.
Which is much, sorry Birmingham people, but it really is. So we were going up every other Saturday to take Noah, getting up ridiculous o'clock, trying to get a Weetabix
McDonald's
down
breakfast.
a little person before we left. Was crazy.
Yeah.
Eli, you didn't like Weetabix at that early in the morning. You really didn't.
No.
You really didn't.
No, 5 a.m.
So we were travelling up every other week, and then this letter had come through the door, and we were like, oh, Father God, what is going on now? So I've written in my blog here, we started to ring house upon house upon house, and every house we rang, they were saying no.
And this was in what area?
In Surrey.
In Surrey.
We had it planned, and we said to God, why don't you want us in Surrey anymore? And I've written down here, which is quite funny, Gary, that I remember this. It says, my wonderful husband was on the phone and the signal was lost.
Oh, is this?
And he wasn't sure if the agent had heard him. And he went through this process. He said, so we have 4 children and 1 dog. And this is what, at the time we had 1 dog. And then the signal went, and he went, hello? We have 1 dog. The signal went again. Pardon? We have 1 dog. We still have 1 dog. We still have 1 dog. And he wasn't sure if they were there or not. And the children were curling up in the back, laughing and crying. They had to be some of the light times in this process of looking for a house.
There had to be something, didn't there?
And we had to dig so deep. But it suddenly dawned on us that maybe we were looking
In the wrong place.
And do you remember, Ari, sitting on the swinging seat with me in the garden when I first looked at some houses somewhere else?
In the north.
In the north?
Yeah, in the north. We were going north. Now, that's like the
What were
record.
the boys' reactions?
Well, let the record show first of all that us females, very in tune to God, we were like,
Knew this was coming.
yes, definitely, we know the time in Surrey is over. We're down here. It's time to move on. And the boys were like, no. And then to make it even funnier, we visit the north and we find a house. And we're looking at the house. We're going to view the house. And Noah decides to express his opinion rather readily. And he's going, nope, not moving there, won't move there, not going to that house.
I tell where this house actually was. So one house, actually, you need to backtrack a little bit. So Ariel and I sensed that maybe we should look north. And Gary was like, okay, I don't know about this. And it's like always lived south of London. And what did you say to me? In our
Anything.
marriage?
I said anything the other side of London is north, and I'm not interested. I don't
Yes.
want to go north. I'm a southerner, and that's the end. of it.
Please don't ever say that, because God kind of looks down and goes, ha ha, let's
No
go.
God is an oxymoron.
So
is what
if
it
you
is.
say, God,
No.
we don't want to move to France.
No Lord, no God is an oxymoron, because he
Oxymoron
can't be your Lord and say no to him, you know?
Absolutely right.
So we did. We went to start to look for houses. I think, in fact, Gary, you rented a small self-catering,
Oh, we did.
and we went up just for a weekend and nothing was happening. And then we were driving around and I said, let's just drive a little bit further north. I think we pushed Gary as far as Stratford area.
That's right.
And
Oh, we found a house in Stratford, didn't we?
we did, but it didn't work, hey? And then we were trying to go, I said, why don't we just travel a little bit further north towards Walsall before we go home? And we were driving around the NEC.
Yes.
Strange. And drove down this really country lane towards Meriden, which is, for information, called the centre of England.
Yeah.
The
Anyway,
epicentre of England. That's
We were
right.
driving out past and I saw this sign on the side of the road on the middle of the, what's the motorway? The M4? No.
Yeah, it's the M40. But
Yeah.
M40, there was a sign, literally, and said to let, to rent. And I said, ring it.
Yes,
and,
you do.
and anyway, we rang this house, which happened to be on the edge of this motorway,
Bicken Hill.
Bicken Hill, right next to the NEC. You could literally see the NEC.
Yes, you could. You
From
could see
our
it from the
top
bedroom
You could
windows.
window.
see it, you could hear it, you could smell it.
It wasn't far to go to get chips.
It was, in reality, it was probably about half a mile away.
And we never
But
visited.
from where we were, it looked so
No, you
ridiculously
had a
close.
I had one birthday, but we hardly ever used it. It
I'm not
had,
driven around the car park.
it had the Bear Grylls Adventure Centre and everything, but we never actually went.
Yeah.
No, we never went. Never went.
How crazy. Anyway, we found this house. Gary rang up about it, and lo and behold, she said, come and have a look.
but not in that kind of creepy voice.
She said, "Come and have a look."
You
Well-
can stay with
She
me.
said, come and have a look.
That's another story.
That's a reference to a different story. You'll find out about that later.
She said, come and have a look. When would you like to come? And we said, now. Because we are literally driving around the corner and we're only up here for another day.
And we drove, and we got into the driveway,
They made
and
it-
Noah said,
They done us a favour and came out to show us.
Goodbye.
Noah said,
Noah said, I am never moving here, not on your life. There was no public transport from there. You couldn't walk anywhere. And if you did want to walk anywhere, you would walk straight onto the motorway. Behind the house was land that was owned by HS2.
It was very pretty at that moment.
If anyone remembers that rail
And a poppy
project.
field.
And a poppy field, not a poppy
proper
field.
poppy field.
Well, a proppy field would be good for
Say
theatre,
that.
wouldn't it? Yeah.
Say that, Noah.
A proper poppy field.
Proper
A proper poppy field.
There's a tongue twister.
Ah.
Proper poppy field.
For all of
But
those
anyway,
that would
I
like
said
to
no.
know.
I said no. Didn't know. I did.
Oh.
No, he said I. No,
Oh,
he
I
didn't
didn't
say
know.
no. He said I'm actually not getting out the car.
Yes, I did. I refused to get out
I
of the
remember
car.
that, yeah.
I
This is a
refused
Caris
to get
Bible
out of the
College
car.
student.
I was
Very
17.
stubborn 17-year-old.
This is my BC days before Caris.
Well, you were nearly Caris.
Everybody had a good look around the house.
No, you were in first year.
He was
except
still
Noah.
learning like
He
we
could
all
not
are.
be shaken.
Anyway, we came home and the house was rather small. And
I liked.
you know that peace that passes all understanding,
You're past my understanding.
that floods your heart and your mind. You know, the scripture says, commit your way to God and the peace of God. And we'd committed this house to God, sitting in a beautiful house in Surrey with all our friends around us, ministry thriving. Gary saying, I'm not moving anywhere north of Birmingham. Not knowing,
London.
oh, sorry, London.
Yeah, London.
Not knowing anyone up here apart from a few of Noah's students that he was getting to know. We knew no one.
No one. And we'd just moved from a house that looked out over the beautiful countryside.
And
Your,
horses.
your nearest town was, what, 20 minutes away? You know? And then we moved to this house where if you walk up your road, you walk onto the M40.
Yeah,
And opposite you is the biggest convention centre in Birmingham.
yeah. And, you know, I'm reminded of that time that looking at the blog post here, we said we were reminded today how easy it is to be negative and to speak doubt over our circumstances. But when we speak faith based on what our Father has already said, we not only loose those things that He wants for us, but we agree with His word. And
That's right.
the word says He'll watch over His word to perform it. And I've put here, as we sit in a house full of turmoil, as God moves on our hearts to give it all away and to pack up our house that we have been told we had to move out of for the last 6-7 months. It was, you can stay, you can go. So we packed and we didn't pack, and we packed and we didn't pack. And I've put here, Eli, I know how much we can live without our little 4-year-old boy, one of his beloved Hot Wheels cars, a few packing boxes, some packing tape wrapped around countless cars, and a DVD shelf leaning against the wall. He's provided him hours of play. So in the middle of that chaos, when the boxes were all around us and God had said, go north, we found the joy in the simple things. Do you remember putting together some of those things? Or I'm sure with all the packing boxes you've had to live with, you've made some great things out of packing boxes. Can you remember some of them? What did you do with the packing tape just this last move when we moved here, when we came to Staffordshire Moorlands? What did
Didn't I tape up Oscar or something?
you did?
Yeah.
Did he wrap me up?
Yeah,
In packing tape.
like a mummy.
Gonna pose it too.
That is a very ingenious use of packing tape, but not recommended, boys and girls. If you're listening to this, don't go and grab the
I made a
sellotape.
beard.
Yes,
Yes,
You
You
did.
did.
You made a
Yes.
beard out of brown tape.
We became so, I suppose, enraptured in the whole thing, I actually made a beard out of masking tape and strapped it across my chin because I didn't have one yet. So there we go.
You still don't have one.
No.
He still doesn't have one. And don't tape anyone up if they've got hairy arms.
It did take a little bit of time to get the house all sorted and say that we'd go and live on the M40, not literally on it, but next to it.
May as well have been.
And we kept travelling up and down between the Midlands and Surrey. And it's amazing when you say yes to God, how suddenly your thoughts and your heart starts to line up.
Yeah. And I'm ashamed to say that is one of my favourite houses now. Big time.
Oh yeah, we ended up living in the house Noah refused to go to.
Oh yeah, we did.
We did end up living in the house. I don't think we've said that yet.
We did. We were moving
Oh, yeah.
to the house.
We moved
Right.
to it.
We were moving to the house, which brings you to the point earlier on. I said Proverbs, and that's because I was thinking of Proverbs 3, and it says this: trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. Seek his will in all you do, and he will show you which path to take.
Mm. And it was
Yeah.
the path further north than London,
It
wasn't
was,
it?
but actually, what we're forgetting was at this time we were leading the Surrey Academy. We felt God had called us north, so we knew that we needed to start Manor up there as well.
That's true.
We didn't want to give up Surrey because we knew that what we'd established here, we weren't just going to drop.
Mm.
So we'd made a decision in our hearts that even if we moved locationally north, which for those of you that don't know geographics of Great Britain, between Birmingham and Surrey is a 3-hour trip.
Yeah,
Then we also had a Manor Academy down in the south,
that's right.
which Eastbourne,
The
which was
deep south.
another 2 hours south. And at this time, we were trying to maintain all three. So after homeschooling had finished, we jumped in the car and we would travel north or south. So we were going to travel north to live, and now we were going to do 2 souths.
That's right.
And how long did we do this for, coming back and forth to Surrey?
I mean,
No,
yeah,
it wasn't 3 years.
That does sound ridiculous when you put it like that. But our heart was definitely to continue to carry on. We didn't realise, to be fair, actually how hard it would be to do that.
But we knew that for a season, God had asked us to keep discipling and carrying and looking after the 3 places which he had grown.
Mm.
And I've written here in the blog, the calm is surely internal peace that only a loving father can bring.
That's right.
And when all the natural screams uncertainties and financial concern, in that storm we speak, peace be still. And we choose to step out of our comfort boat onto a water that we don't know its depth or current, but he does. With Jesus calling us out and north, we will surely walk on water if our eyes are fixed on him. I wrote here, I'm humbled and rejoicing to know he has called our whole family to this. And they love and honour the call as much as we do. And we're grateful to you, Jesus, always. Something comes to my mind that a pastor once said to us way back before Manor started. In fact, if you've listened to previous episodes, you will hear the story of when we were very tempted a few moments before Manor started to move to Devon and Cornwall, because we were given the opportunity to have a house with homeschoolers around us and everything. Anyway, talking about that again, picking that back up, just before we started Manor, probably not just before, probably a couple of years before we started Manor in Surrey, we were asked to go and be youth pastors in a church in Bournemouth, which is a place very close to my heart, because where I was born, and love it down there. Who wouldn't love the sand? Again, something's happening with the seaside here. Guys, this is a bit of a thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the opportunity was amazing, and it was open and lovely, lovely pastors. And God just kept saying no. And we were like, but Father, we're going to serve you.
We were
It's
saying
Bournemouth.
yes. We were saying yes. God was saying no.
No, God was saying no. And something I remember the pastor there saying to me, which has just come back to my heart, is when you step out in faith, don't look for all the ducks to be lined up. There you go. There's another sound effect.
Quack, quack, quack.
I think one of the things that we have in everyday life, in little decisions and big decisions, is when we want everything to be laid out before us before we take that step. And what's the teaching we get at Caris called The Place Called There, Ari?
Yeah, a place called there.
What's the place called there about, Ari?
So it goes that, so it's based off the story of Elijah, of when he was hiding in the wilderness and God had told him to go to Zarephath, I think it was, and he said, I have instructed a widow there to prepare food for you and to provide for you. And it's talking about how where God sends you, he is going to provide, and your provision is in the place he has called you, so it's the place called there.
Absolutely.
There you go.
And we definitely, the next episodes will show you what God did when we actually moved to the West Midlands. And the first day we arrived, there was nobody there we knew.
That's right.
Although a local church that knew we were coming, bless them, Hebron in Coventry,
Yeah.
the pastors there were, knew that we were moving up. We'd made an initial contact over email because they were the nearest church to us and we didn't know anything else. And they arrived with bags of food and a couple had made us lunch.
That's right, yeah.
You know what? What practical love.
Absolutely.
Have you got anything that you might want to say on that, Ozzy?
Gosh, yeah, I think one thing that's often forgotten, I suppose, in the Christian world is the... I'm sorry, no, I was literally pulling me across almost onto his lap to lean into the microphone. I think...
First hug you've had all day, Ozzy.
Hug. Thank you. Well, that's not a hug, no, he's just squeezing me. I think one thing that's often forgotten is the practical side of love in the Christian world. It's so easy to get so enraptured, in the spiritual side of things, we actually forget, that Jesus gave practical love to those that followed him. And I think just having somebody come and give you food, or somebody just come and say they were thinking of you, or whether it's flowers or food, it's such a powerful way of sharing Jesus, being practical. So, yeah.
It meant a lot, didn't it?
It did.
To travel 3 hours. I mean, there were two sides to this practical love, really, because there's a blog post here later on when we actually talk about the actual moving day.
Yeah.
When people who we knew and loved in Surrey, Sinead, a dear friend, turned up with what she called a moving bag or a moving box.
Oh, I remember that. It was that big fabric. It was a big fabric bag, and it was like places of Surrey from the National Trust that we could remember Surrey by. And there were loads of things in it to keep Eli and everyone occupied during the big move.
There were things for each person. It was just like the love and attention that she'd taken to making sure somebody had something to help the travel and the journey and the big move be positive, and those, I think it's in the film, what's the film? Random Acts of Kindness, and there were Evan Almighty, is it Evan Almighty, where he says, what does the word? Acts of Random Kindness, which he talks about when it's a film about a guy who's basically depicting the story of Noah in a loose way, and is building the ark, but in the end, ark stands for Acts of Random Kindness.
Didn't Morgan Freeman play God?
Yes.
I think Morgan Freeman does play God. We have a friend that looks like Morgan Freeman.
No, we have a relative that looks like
No, we have a yes.
Oh, no,
and a friend.
And a friend, yes,
Loxley
yes.
looks like Morgan Freeman. So acts of random kindness, and I think Oscar is so right. Just that little act when it came to moving, and then when we got up there, someone turning up and giving the kids some buns and popcorn and drinks and stuff to keep them busy on the moving day, just meant so much.
It definitely did.
So we ended up now. You can follow our family journey. We are now at the stage where we are in. Gary, say it.
Say it. Say it, Dad.
No.
Yes. So we made it to the north despite my biggest protests, despite Dad's protests. Yes, ladies,
say it again.
You were right.
Say it again.
Say it again.
Ladies, you were right and we were wrong.
And again.
You were right and we were wrong.
And again.
You were right and we were wrong.
Oh, music.
Oh.
We need to keep this as...
Oh, man.
Well, Harriet's forever now on podcast.
It's forever.
Let the record be heard. Noah Crick said that we were right and he was wrong.
Yep. Okay.
He almost lost the words. And that's not something he does very often.
Oh, thank you.
So I think the whole sort of theme of this podcast, if you like, is sometimes it doesn't make sense. I mean, think about Eli. Think about Noah and the ark. Did it make sense to build a big boat when it hadn't rained?
No.
So why do you think Noah did it?
Because God told him to.
Wow. Do you think it's always easy to do things God tells us to do when they don't make sense?
No.
No. But can we trust God?
Yes.
So Noah built this big ark. What happened next after he
There
built
was a
it?
flood.
A flood. So was God right?
Yes.
And so Noah was kept safe.
Yeah.
All because he obeyed, right?
Yep.
So there you have it. You have it from an 8-year-old.
You know what's even amazing
Absolutely.
about that story, though? It took Noah 100 years to build the boat.
Wow.
So it took 100 years for everyone else to see that Noah was doing what God had asked him, and in the end it was right for Noah to fulfill God's plan, and it took 100 years to get there.
Can you imagine if we had to wait 100 years to see that God was actually right in what he told us to do?
I don't think most people live 100 years these days.
No.
No.
No, it would take some serious faith, wouldn't it?
So I think, what we can learn from this podcast is God often asks us to do things that don't make sense to our natural minds, but it's in the trust, in the going. It might not mean as crazily as moving to the M40 like we had to do, but it might just be little things. Can you think of any testimonies, Oscar, where God has asked you to do something that didn't make sense?
Gosh.
No, one of you bought a guitar for somebody and gave up all your wages, I think.
Oh, yeah, that was you.
Another one of you, God asked you to do something, and can you think of anything?
Gosh, there's been so much over the years that I suppose wouldn't make sense to you, but again, I'm being hugged. I think there's many things in our life that have happened that haven't made sense, and quite often that is the way. I'm struggling to think of there's so many different things. I know Noah had the idea from God to give a friend a guitar that was entirely, I suppose off topic for you, wasn't it? And I think, it just appeared.
I think for me, I can understand where the sense came in with that, though. So, but I think a story that we've personally experienced where God has asked us to do something that didn't make sense was, do you remember the time we were at Sainsbury's and God told me not to do something?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you want me to tell that story?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, I'll tell the story. So we were in Sainsbury's, as you do, walking around, and one thing Noah had quite the habit of doing was just visiting the tech aisle.
He still does.
So he does, yeah. He often just visits Curry's PC World for no apparent reason, which I think is quite strange.
Wow.
But he
Curry
does.
PC World is
He
Boring.
he does go. He went to the tech aisle that day.
He didn't. He didn't go to the tech aisle.
Oh, that's the point. You
That's the
wanted
point.
to. You wanted to. And for some reason, he just felt in the spirit that the Lord said not to go. And he was like, wow, well, what does that mean? And he was like, I want to go to the tech aisle. And I was like, no. So
Didn't make sense.
it didn't make sense, no.
Why
and
would God deprive you of going to the tech?
why?
30 minutes, like 30 seconds.
Yes.
I know.
It was going to be 30 seconds. I tried to tell the Lord.
But he felt it, and we went home quicker than we would have done if he had have gone to the tech
He
aisle.
wasn't speeding.
30
No,
seconds
30
quicker.
seconds quicker.
By 30 seconds. And we got home, and there was... it was nearly a fire, wasn't it?
It
Yeah.
was.
Yeah,
Fire.
so
What was
Mum
the
had
fire?
left, Mum or Dad.
It was
I
Dad.
won't
It
point
was
fingers.
definitely
Oh, of course
Dad.
it was Dad.
It was definitely
Remember,
Dad.
ladies and gentlemen, this whole podcast is about how women are right and men are wrong.
It was
So it was definitely
definitely
Dad.
you, wasn't it,
Dad left the chicken stock on the stove and he forgot to turn it off. Yes, it was Dad. It was Dad.
Yeah, yeah,
There's a
yeah.
teacher
Dad
that
likes
says,
chicken
yeah, yeah.
stuff.
there's a teacher that says, zip it, put your hands behind your back. So I'm zipping it.
All right. Well, it was you who left this chicken stock on the stove, okay, and basically you forgot to turn it off before you left. And I was going to go to the tech aisle in Sainsbury's.
It
And,
was me, because I was
and
thinking of the macaroni cheese.
that's right.
Yeah,
and
all right,
God,
that was another time
and God
that
said
was-
to me not to go. So I didn't go, and we got back in the car and we drove home, and we came back to a house full of smoke, didn't we?
Yes, which I ran into.
Well, no, that's a different story. This
Another fire.
time we actually called the fire service, and the fire service came out. They went into the house in their oxygen masks and all of that, and he came back out and he said he brought the pan with him actually, and he showed you the chicken stock, and he said, had you been 30 seconds later, you would have been coming home to a full blown house fire. And it suddenly hit me that the 30 seconds that I could have spent in the tech aisle and disobeyed God's leading to not go into the tech aisle could have been the difference between us coming home and us coming to a pile of ashes, according to the fire service. So it's amazing how sometimes when God asks us to do things that don't make sense, but we do them, one day they do make sense. So be it 30 minutes later for
So
us
what
that
you're
time.
saying then is it's not just important to listen to the voice of God and to obey, but the timing of obedience.
Absolutely.
What was that? What is that thing that we always taught you in homeschool? Delayed obedience.
Slow
Slow obedience is
disobedience.
disobedience. That's right. That's right. Well,
Not always easy, and we definitely have not got it perfect
No.
this end of the table. But
No.
we are learning slowly that when God says something, we need to do it and do it now.
absolutely. Well, there we go. That is blog post number 1 in our book, Pioneers and Praisers, which is available on Amazon. If you literally just search Pioneers and Praisers by Jamie Crick on Amazon, you will find this book. It's got a big yellow American school bus on it, which we will get to later on in this series. But in that book is full of all the blog posts from 2019. Or failing that, you can visit our family blog at www.pioneersandpraises.wordpress.co.uk or .com. It's one or the other, but you can see all of these blog posts on there. So for the next couple of weeks, we're going to be taking you through it all, taking you through our journey in ministry from moving from the south as born and bred Southerners to the north and the amazing things that God has done there.
Interspersed with testimony.
Interspersed with testimony, absolutely. Don't forget also, we've got a separate side series running to this called 3 Minute Testimonies. That's where you're going to hear a testimony in under 3 minutes from one of us family here telling you about a story of God's goodness in our lives. I know that Mum shared one just recently called Jam and Potatoes, so go back and have a listen to that because that is an awesome story, and what a title, Jam and Potatoes. So have a look, have a listen. If you haven't heard in the previous podcast, go and catch up. We'd love for you to be on this journey with us. And yeah, that's it for today. So from all of us here at the Crick House, it's a big goodbye.
Thank you so much for listening today. We hope you enjoyed being in the Crick House with us. Did you know that as a family, we are full-time missionaries and we rely on donations from people like you to meet our daily living costs? If you would like to support this podcast and our family by giving a one-time or monthly gift, please visit our website at www.mannatheatrecompany.uk/donate. Thank you so much and see you next time.